main character approach, doer or beer? Now, most people who are doers will read that as doer or beers. Okay, that's typically it. But what was it? Steve Greenfield, president of Screenplay Systems, said, doers be doers and do beers. Anyway, he's from a doer standpoint, I guess.
Sounds dubious.
Yes, dooby-dooby-doo. It says, how will main character prefer to solve his problem? Through external work or internal work? Now, in our culture, particularly in Western culture, doers are held in great esteem, whereas beers are looked at as being wishy-washy to some extent. That really is just a cultural affectation. It's not what we're talking about here. There are characters who go out and try to solve the problem by manipulating their environment, saying, even if they feel bad inside, well, you know, if I go out and get some new drapes, and if I go on vacation, maybe I'll feel better. That's a doer. Because even though they're trying to resolve something going on inside their heart, they try to achieve that by manipulating the physical world. Or the other way is just somebody who's going out blowing people away with guns because they're in his way. That's another kind of doer. Now a beer, by contrast, a beer is someone who tries to change themselves directly, just like a doer tries to blow people out of the way. The beer will try to change their own emotions just by saying, you know, I'm just going to have a change of heart. I'm going to be upbeat today and see what happens. But a beer also will try to change the external environment by being a certain way, by being a role model, by being a passive-aggressive, by adopting an attitude like a mother who sees the young son trying to climb a fence and knows that if she goes out and expresses how she really feels, he's not going to get the confidence that he needs. So she does the work inside, holds herself in place, and lets him take the chance because she knows he has to grow. The unsinkable Molly Brown is a beer character. She never really did anything on the Titanic, but she inspired. So role models are largely beers. However, again, in our society, you look at things like the original Kung Fu series, not the remake, but if you look at the original Kung Fu series with David Carradine, he's a character who does not believe in physical violence unless there's no other way around it. And so we admire him because he acts as a role model and he sticks by his beliefs as a strong beer character. But then events conspire to force him to have to whip the tar out of somebody and kick his ass, and when he does that, then we get our satisfaction in Western culture of seeing people blown away and everything's okay. Only the rare episode did David Carradine change people by simply being a role model and never lifting a finger. Examples of this, interestingly enough, you'll find that Clint Eastwood likes to play both kinds of characters. He likes to play the reluctant character who is a beer at heart, but is forced to take action, and he also likes to play the doer character who just loves to take action. We'll see a contrast here of the doer and a beer by looking at Clint Eastwood first as a pure doer character in Dirty Harry, followed by an example of Clint Eastwood as a beer character as William Money in Unforgiven. Now again, to meet the cultural expectations, he ends up going out and blowing people away at the end of Unforgiven, but it's not his preference. He'd rather not. So let's take a look at those two clips side by side. We'll run them both together. Clint Eastwood as a doer and Clint Eastwood as a beer. You can see there that, once again, the beer is portrayed as somebody who's kind of a wimp. Now, in fact, the reason he's that way is he used to be a gunslinger, and he made a promise to his wife that he would no longer do that and would raise the children after she died the way she wanted them raised. So he tries to stick with that as long as he can, but at the end he has to revert to his old ways in order to save the day. But he kind of comes to terms with it because he knows he held out as long as he could. So in a sense he's sort of like Judah Rosenthal in that case. He's changed, but just shifting from doing to beer doesn't necessarily mean that one has actually changed. Doing and being is a preference. It's not necessarily what you are able to do to succeed in the story, it's what you would rather do. So if you put a doer in a story that requires doing, they're quite comfortable. If you put them in a story that requires changing something inside directly in order to succeed, they're a fish out of water. Similarly, a beer in a story that requires soul searching is quite happy to do it. But a beer in a story that requires going out and physically taking action, they're not very comfortable with that.